Year 1947. In the fields of Connecticut, farmers are terrified. Reports of silvery circular objects taking off almost vertically and disappearing on the horizon at impossible speeds fill the newspaper headlines. Witnesses speak of deafening noise, of a silhouette that defies all aeronautical logic. It's not an alien invasion, although it certainly looks like one. It's the best-kept secret of the United States Navy, the Vought XF5U, affectionately nicknamed by engineers as the Flying Pancake, a machine that defied all the laws of traditional aerodynamics, designed to be the definitive fighter capable of operating from the deck of any ship without the need for a conventional runway. An aircraft that was literally a flying disc with gigantic propellers mounted at its ends. Welcome to the story of one of the strangest, most revolutionary and visually striking aircraft that ever flew through American skies, and to the conspiracy about why, after proving in the tests that it was practically indestructible, the Navy ordered it reduced to scrap with an industrial wrecking ball. To understand the Flying Pancake, we need to meet Charles Zimmerman. Zimmerman wasn't a crazy visionary. He was a certified genius from NACA, the predecessor organization of NASA, who had a revolutionary theory that would change aviation. He said that if you could use the propellers strategically to channel air over the entire aircraft body, the fuselage itself would generate massive lift. Instead of having long, fragile wings that break under stress or create aerodynamic drag, Zimmerman proposed a radical, low aspect ratio design. The aircraft would literally be a disc, an almost perfect circle of metal and composite materials. By placing two enormous counter-rotating propellers at opposite corners of the disc, the turbulent airflow would cover the entire fuselage surface, allowing the aircraft to fly at incredibly low speeds of just 30 km per hour, without entering aerodynamic stall, but also to accelerate to speeds close to 800 km per hour in level flight. It was, in essence, a vertical takeoff helicopter and a high-speed combat fighter merged into a single masterpiece of aeronautical engineering. But taking this from mathematical calculations on paper to physical reality was years of genuine technical torture that lasted from concept to prototype. The first experimental prototype, the V173, was rudimentarily constructed from plywood and fabric stretched over a tubular frame, and its initial flights between 1942 and 1943 left the Navy in absolute shock. Test pilots, combat-hardened veterans, reported with disbelief that it was nearly impossible to make it enter a spin or aerodynamic stall. It was so aerodynamically stable that you could literally release the control sticks, and the aircraft would simply float in the air as if suspended by invisible threads. However, the Navy wanted much more raw power for combat. They wanted the XF5U, a fully militarized combat version built from a secret and experimental material called Metalite, a technical mixture of aeronautical aluminum and pressed balsa wood that was incredibly light in weight and at the same time ridiculously strong in structural resistance. The main technical problem was the mechanical transmission. Connecting two massive Pratt and Whitney engines of 1,600 horsepower each to two counter-rotating propellers located at opposite ends of the disc required a system of cardan shafts, gears, and gearboxes so complex and heavy that harmonic vibrations constantly threatened to split the aircraft fuselage in two halves before it could even take off from the ground. This is where the technical story becomes absolutely legendary and almost unbelievable to modern engineers. The XF5U was so structurally robust that during exhaustive material resistance tests conducted at the Vought hangar, engineers deliberately attempted to destroy the fuselage structure to determine precisely how much punishment it could withstand before catastrophic failure. They threw massive weights from considerable heights onto the structure, subjected it to inhuman torsional stresses that would have torn any conventional aircraft of the era to pieces, and the revolutionary Metalite construction didn't even bend or crack under the extreme pressure. When they finally decided to cancel the project in 1947 for political and budgetary reasons, something absolutely unprecedented in military aviation history occurred. The Navy officially ordered the destruction of the XF5U prototype so it wouldn't fall into enemy hands or to Soviet spies who were actively seeking American military secrets. They brought a massive steel wrecking ball, the kind normally used to demolish reinforced concrete buildings, and dropped it with full force and the weight of several tons onto the Pancake's fuselage. The steel ball simply bounced off like a rubber ball hitting concrete. The aircraft was so incredibly resistant that the standard industrial destruction tool couldn't even dent it superficially. They had to bring specialized teams with high-temperature acetylene torches and literally cut it piece by piece, section by section, over several complete days to be able to comply with the military order for complete elimination. Why destroy such a technically perfect and promising machine? Here enters the political and technological shadow of the emerging Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. In 1947, the golden age of jet engines had just begun with full force. The Navy's High Command strategically decided that the inevitable future of military aviation was pure jets, and that a propeller aircraft, no matter how revolutionary and innovative in design, no longer had a legitimate place in the new world of supersonic speed and jet-powered combat. The XF5U was cruelly sacrificed on the altar of relentless technological progress, despite the fact that its unique short takeoff and landing capabilities, STOL, far exceeded any operational jet of the era. Many serious aeronautical historians and military analysts firmly believe that if the Pancake had entered active military service, the Korean War of 1950 to 1953 would have been tactically very different, with close air support fighters operating efficiently from small improvised naval platforms at sea, completely ignoring vulnerable enemy land air bases that could be bombed or overrun. Flying the Flying Pancake was a sensory experience that bordered on the completely supernatural and defied conventional pilot training. Because the counter-rotating propellers were so disproportionately large, almost 5 meters in diameter each, the aircraft had to be tilted at a very steep angle of almost 22 degrees while parked on the ground. The pilot, seated in the forward cockpit, looked directly at the sky at the moment of takeoff, seeing practically nothing of the horizon ahead. But once in the air at operational altitude, the maneuverability was absolute and incomparable to any conventional fighter. It could turn tight in such a reduced space that any conventional enemy fighter would have overshot due to inertia and momentum. Charles Zimmerman had technically achieved the impossible, an aircraft that practically ignored aerodynamic drag and conventional flight limitations. But his innovative genius was paradoxically his bureaucratic condemnation. The design was so visually strange and unconventional for the conservative old-school generals that they never fully trusted it for mass production deployment. The technical and aeronautical legacy of the Flying Pancake lives on today in modern designs of flying wing aircraft, in circular reconnaissance drones, and in experimental VTOL concepts, but its tragic history remains a permanent reminder of a golden era when the United States was genuinely willing to try anything, no matter how crazy or unorthodox it seemed to conventional military thinking. It was the aircraft that scared Connecticut civilians who reported UFO sightings, that humiliated industrial wrecking balls designed to destroy concrete buildings, and that was prematurely buried by military bureaucracy just when it was about to fundamentally change naval aviation forever. It's the UFO that really physically existed, that really flew with human pilots in documented test flights, and that was structurally too strong for its own political good. Imagine for a moment the deep technical frustration of Zimmerman and his dedicated engineering team as they watched their revolutionary creation, capable of resisting destructive impacts that would have disintegrated any other aircraft of the era, being methodically cut with acetylene torches like simple scrap metal destined for recycling. It was a premeditated technological murder carried out by military bureaucracy. The XF5U could have been the direct ancestor of an entire line of disc-shaped aircraft that would have strategically eliminated the need for gigantic and expensive aircraft carriers. But history is written by the budgetary victors, and in 1947, the jet engine definitively won the political battle for military funding and development priorities. Today, only a carefully restored V-173 remains at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, a silent and melancholic reminder that there was a time when long wings were not absolutely necessary if you had enough innovative imagination and revolutionary Metalite material. The Flying Pancake is, without any doubt whatsoever, the greatest what-if in the entire history of the United States Navy. A brilliant machine that was born in the right place, but at the wrong historical moment when the military world decided that propellers were already obsolete past and the future belonged firmly to jets.